Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Khoj Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. Our recitation for the day is Maj Mahalla Tija, Kar Pehla. Karam Hovai Satguru Milai, Seva Surat Sabad Chit Lai. How मैं मार सदा सुख पाया, माया मोह चुकावणिया. हाउ वारी जियो वारी, सतगुर के बलहारणिया. गुरमति परगास होआ, जी अन दिन हर गुण गावणिया रहाओ. तन मन खोजे ता नाओ पाए, तावत राखै ठाक रहाए. गुर की बाणी अन दिन गावै, सहजे भगत करावणिया. इस काया अंदर वस्त असंखा, गुरमुख साच मिलै तां वेखां. 9 दरवाजे 10वें मुक्ता, अनहद शब्द वजावणिया. साचा साहिब सच्ची नाई, गुर प्रसादी मने वसाई. अन दिन सदा रहे रंगराता, दर सच्चे सोजी पावणिया. पाप पुण्य की सार न जानी, दूजे लागी भरम पुलाणी. अज्ञानी अंधा मग न जाने, फिर यावण जावणिया. गुर सेवा ते सदा सुख पाया, हऊँ मैं मेरा ठाक रहाया. गुर साखी मिटिया अंधियारा, बज्जर कपाट खुलावणिया. हऊँ मैं मार मन वसाया, गुर चरणी सदा चित लाया. गुर कृपा ते मन तन निर्मल, निर्मल नाम ध्यावणिया. जीवन मरना सब तुद्धे ताई, जिस बख्शे तिस दे वडियाई. नानक नाम ध्याए सदा तू, जम्मण मरण सवारणिया. Composed in Rag Maj, this is a composition of the third Nanak Guru Amar Das, who begins by saying, the serenity and tranquility of harmonizing with Hukam, which is the end goal in Sikhi, that comes by dissolving Haume, the ego, and its emotional delusions. So we have to learn how to do that. Haume maar, sada sukh paya. Sada sukh means a constant state of agreeable ease, not to be confused with the happiness of the moment that we all seek. This is sada sukh. This is a constant state. Therefore, this can only come when we are in alignment and attunement with Hukam. So, haume maar sada sukh paya. And you have to give up your emotional delusions. Maya moh chukavneya. Now, if we are so blessed and graced, then the Satguru, the primal enlightener, leads our attention and awareness to become centered in the self. Karam Hovai Satguru Milai. Seva Surat Sabad Chit Lai. That's the process in order to harmonize with Hukam. It's a matter ultimately of grace. But we have to do our part, which is to bring our attention to the teachings of the enlightener. Seva Surat Sabad Chit Lai. Sabad, the narrative of the Guru. That's where we have to begin. And when we do, Karam Hovai Satguru Milai, we are graced. And our attention then becomes centered in the self. When that happens, we are in Hukam. Because the self in us is indeed an expression of Hukam itself. How vari jiyo, vari Satgur ke baliharana. This is a common expression which really means, baliharana means to give up one's strength. In other words, to give up one's thinking, one's point of view. Because here we are trying to absorb the Guru's wisdom. We are using Guru wisdom as our compass, not our own conditioned thinking. So therefore, Guru Amar Das says, I yield in submission to the true enlightener. How vari jiyo, vari Satgur ke baliharne, to lose your strength, to give up, to submit. When I do that, Gurmati Paragas Hovaji. Gur wisdom, what does it do? It illuminates my mind. And then Hargun Gavanaya. Hargun Gavanaya. Gavanaya is glorification. What that really means is that you have now identified with the self, the Har self within. And then Andin. Andin means every moment. Every moment. Andin Hargun Gavanaya. What that identification with the self does is that every moment becomes an act of adoration and worship. That is another way of saying you are then harmonized with Hukam. Tan man khoje, tan nao paye. Search and find deep within the treasure of excellences, nao paye, virtues. In other words, dig deep into yourself to cultivate those virtues, because that is what is going to open the mind up. And as you do that, as you cultivate virtues, tavat rakhe thak rahaye. Tavat, the running. Tavat means the movement. Rakhe, hold. Thak rahaye is to kind of stop it. Still the wandering mind. These two go hand in hand. The cultivation of virtues brings a stilling of the wandering mind. And then Gur ki bani anandan gave, sahaje bhagat karamaniya. Sahaje, spontaneous ease. With spontaneous ease then, love and devotion will well up in you. So at every moment, be guided by Gur wisdom. Gur ki bani andan gave. And devotion will arise in you. Love and devotion for the self. Is kaya andar vast asankha. Gurmukh saach milai ta vekha. Now darwaje daswain mukta anhad sabad vajavanya. If only a Gurmukh were to look truthfully. Where? Look truthfully in this lived body. Is kaya andar. The word kaya signifies the body, but it also has a nuance that we should always bear in mind. It is also referring to the psychic body, the entire complex of the mind and body that works together. Kaya. So really the injunction for us is to move inward. Andar vast asankha. Vast is substance. Asankha is infinite. So this is a reference to that infinite self that is embedded within us. So if only we were to look truthfully in this lived body, we would find the self, which is the essence of numberless substances. Another way of saying the infinite self. And where does it reside? Within Nau Darwaje Daswe Mukta. Here there is this notion of the 9 doors of perception, which are sense perceptions, psychic perceptions, but the self lies beyond the senses. That's why Daswe Mukt. You have to penetrate past these doors of sensory perceptions. Because remember, the self is not a material thing. It is consciousness, chetana. So it cannot be a physical thing that you're looking for. And here is the advice. No darwaje dasme mukta, anhad sabad-a-day. And there the self resonates as a soundless sound. Now this is paradoxical, but that's the nature of the self. You need a set of other faculties to listen to the soundless sound. You cannot connect with it with the senses. That is essentially the message in the third section here, the third pada. At the door of the eternal self is discernment received. That's what happens. Sacha Sahib Sachi Nai Gur Prasadi Man Vasai. Andan Sada Rahe Rangarata Dar Sache Soji Pavanaya. Discernment is received of the eternal master and its law. You begin to get discernment of hukam. And with good guidance, the discernment takes root within. And forever does one live in bliss. In other words, you're harmonized. It's bliss. Sada Sukh. Now what happens ordinarily is that we lack in this discernment. Papa Poniki Sarna Jani. And because we lack discernment, we're ignorant, and here the reference is to the ignorant, who are blindsided, agyani anda. And they know not the right way, magana jane. And therefore they are led astray by false ideas. Duje lagi parambulai. Self-doubt, going astray, losing their way, and getting trapped in the cycle of tedious repetition. Fir avan javanaya. This is the state that most of us are in. Because we've adopted wrong methods, we have housed wrong ideas within our mind, because we have convinced ourselves that we are just this physical material self. So we need to exercise a little bit of our imagination as well. Guru wisdom is what we need to remove this ignorance of my mind by lifting the shutters of conditioning from my mind's eye. Gur Sakhi mitya andhera, bajjar kapat khulavane. Bajjar, hardened. Kapat, shutters, windows, doors. These are the windows of perception, meaning the windows of the senses, because the senses are looking out. But they become hardened like a wall. Kurdi pal, they become that wall of falsehood because they condition us and our memories to think the same way. And this is what Guru wisdom does. It removes that wall of kur by opening and cleansing the windows of our perception. And when that happens, the vacillating self, the haume, is brought under control. Haume mera thak rahaya. If you recall earlier, that is one of the things that happens. And by following the enlightener, the Guru, you find that harmony. So Guru Amar Das says, my attention is always focused on Guru wisdom. Guru Charani Sada Chitalaya. And when, with the grace of Guru wisdom, the mind was focused on the pristine knowledge of the self, Nirmal Nam Te Avanaya, what happened? My haume was dissolved, and the mind became pristine. In other words, the mind became the self, because it centered in its own self. It found itself in a manner of speaking. And in the end, Guruji says, if you wish to successfully live this life, Jammana Marana Savarna, orderly, successful, accomplished, if you wish to live successfully, always be guided by enlightened self-knowledge. Nanak, naam te aay sada tu. Tu sada naam te aaye. Always be guided by self-knowledge. And you can be guided by self-knowledge only if you become like the self. Life and death, he tells us, is really beyond our control. Jivan marna sab tud tai. But those who follow Gur wisdom are blessed with the gift of insight and discernment. This bakshet is devadayai. For them, Jivan Marna then simply it doesn't really matter, because they just see it as part of this creative process, the appearance and disappearance of things. Kaun mua re kaun mua. That's the state that they become. Ye to chalat bhaya. This is all then seen as a play. So the reflective pause in this passage, the Rahau, provides the real essence of the Shabad. When I yield in submission to the true enlightener, Gur wisdom illuminates my mind, then every moment becomes an act of adoration and worship of the Har Self. So therefore, Gur wisdom is necessary to retrain, because we really have to retrain, rewire, reprogram the mind. To do what? To appropriate its innate vision and capacity, which it has, which is boundless. The self is boundless. So that we can fashion our mind to live with an ever-deepening creativity and harmony with our natural surroundings, with nature, with the universe, with people. This is another way of saying attune to Hukam. So therefore, awaken the mind to its potential self through Gur wisdom and Gur guidance, which will then help you retrain the mind to sense and feel the movement of Hukam. On that note, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.